My biggest inspiration is nature, because nature has such beautiful colors and patterns, and especially animals do. But even a hill or a flower or an insect, they all have beautiful shapes and changes in texture and color, and it's fun to put it all together and try to make it look like the real thing. It's like painting. You know, when you put colors down with a brush, you do the same thing. You put down a color and a shape, and you have to match the colors. Use colors that have variations in them, like you do when you mix paint. They take on a life of their own. When I do a polar bear, I feel like I'm in the Arctic with them. Or when I do a panda bear, I'm in China. When I do a horse, I feel the strength and joy of a horse. And when I do a cat, I feel the magic of catdom. I try to make her eyes look really focused and alive, and then the rest of her can be very impressionistic and fanciful. With animals, you know, the colors change constantly, so even the white changes constantly. So I try to use colors that are also changing, they're gradually changing. I trim the white off because you don't always want a hard edge. There's hard edges and there's softer ripped edges, but the ripped edges create a white line. So I try to make a mixture of them, and I trim the torn edges a little bit so that there isn't too much white. Like there's too much white in this one. That would distract from the color. Try to have both regular shapes and irregular shapes. So regular shapes look very neat and tidy, and irregular shapes give it a chaotic look. Sometimes you want one, sometimes you want the other. Visual art makes its own music as you work. I mean, it's a combination of colors and textures, and they move in a visual way. And they make a song of their own. The colors and the patterns make a song. For me, it's like sewing. It is sewing, but with a different material. And because I had sewing as a child, I know how to make volume, how to shape, how to drape something over a volume, which would be the form of a horse in this case. And it surprises me constantly, because I think it's going one way, and all of a sudden I find that the torso has twisted or it's not straight. It has a mind of its own after a while, and so I'm constantly problem solving. How can I make this rounder, fatter, more dynamic? And then I have to make sure that everything is really firm so that it will stand up eventually on its own. So things that are loose, like these legs, they only have one layer of wire, and that's not enough to make it strong. It needs 2 layers. It's just like cutting fabric. Just like it. And then I'm going to wrap it around the leg that's already here. Now, one of the things that I like about using this medium is that I'm using the hexagon, because the openings have 6 sides, and the hexagon is one of the sacred geometric shapes that all life is made from. And so the beauty is that if you keep adding layers, if you keep adding more layers to this, you lose the hexagonal shape pretty quickly. Pretty soon it just looks like a horse with a round shapes, round forms. You don't see the hexagon at all. You don't see those shapes that you wonder, how can you make a flowing body out of a hexagon? But you can. And that's what I do. I make a round flowing body. Sacred geometry is the basic shapes like a circle, oval, square, rectangle. All life is made of them. You know, a shrimp or a earthworm or a plant or a human. The basic building block of a body is those shapes. Sacred because we're recreating a life shape, a life form. I used to make armatures for my sculptures, but I liked the airiness of not covering it, and it seems very spiritual to me. And I like to make them suspended so that they look like they're flying. They're up in the air, and they move with the wind and with atmospheric conditions. And that makes them look alive. It's hard to get to some places. I don't start with a pattern, and I just make it up as I go along, which means that I get into a lot of trouble sometimes. So with the first layer, I'm thinking, oh, this is easy. This is going to look great. And then I get to the second layer, and that's when the fun starts. I like to hang things from the ceiling because that gives them more motion. But this horse is not going to be from the ceiling. He's going to be sitting on the ground, and will be an outdoors sculpture. There'll be 2 horses, the horses of Poseidon, and Poseidon will be behind them, and they'll be rising out of the ground. People respond to this work. They like the airiness of it, the mystery of it, and they're especially surprised to know that they're created by a woman and not a man. They assume a man has done this.